Today I will be discussing this book, Liber, Null, and Psychonaut. It's actually two books. Today I'll be discussing the first of the two books, Liber, Null, which, if I remember my high school freshman Latin, means something along the lines of Book of the Void. This is a book on chaos magic. Now, believe it or not, many of you who are atheists, many of you agnostics, atheists who sub my channel mostly, more than Lucy's, may find this quite interesting. Now, I know many of you think that magic is something of fairy tale. Well, perception is everything. And as we will, so things are made manifest in our lives. We create for ourselves our own thought forms, if you will. And the idea of the laws of attraction is something that just tends to make sense. If you believe that we are all energy competing and relating with each other, if you believe in an idea of a spirit world at all, then magic shouldn't be something that is beyond any possible idea, any construct that you might perceive. Also, I am aware that some of you who may hear this video may be somewhat frightened by the concept of magic, and it can be frightening, I would imagine. But much of the taboo associated with the idea, now remember, the first scientists, the ones who have come up with theories that scientists have been building upon for hundreds of years, like Isaac Newton. These people were practitioners of magic. So it's not just for people who are, well, superstitious. And those who find that magic is taboo, I would have you think about where that comes from, because it's the church that wants to keep you in subjugation and have you believe that you have no power of your own. Well, let's talk about the philosophy. I'm not going to get into ritual here. If you're interested in the book, I will put a link to the book on Amazon. That's where I got it. I am not making any money off this book, simply offering a way for those who find this so compelling and interesting, and I think many of you will, that you would like to get your own copy. It is Liber, Null, and the Psychonaut by Peter J. Carroll. Now, let's get into the idea of chaos. Chaos is, of course, the foundation of all things. It is in all things. The concept of the world and the universe is run by order is an illusion. And it's an illusion that has been broken down a very long time ago. Now, I want to talk personally about my personal evolution. Of course, I am a Zen Buddhist. I will be a Zen Buddhist to the day I die. Now, I don't need to call myself a Zen Buddhist because it's very Zen not to even consider yourself anything, really. I am evolving, I believe, into a more free-thinking, more existential awareness. Myself, the energy of this universe, which we are all a part of, which you could call God if you choose to. As such, since I first adopted not only Buddhism, but Zen Buddhism specifically, I have become more and more detached from the idea of creating personifications in my mind of energy in the universe. Energy that we may choose to call entities. Now, for years, I've been moving away from this anthropomorphism. I don't perceive things the way many other people do. The energy of the universe, to me, is not personified. They're not characters playing out some kind of role in a story. To me, I don't perceive this energy, this spirit of this book refers to as Kia of the universe, as something that can be characterized in human personalities. So I don't really see the concepts of God or angels or demons or devils. Now, in many ways, this may seem to be a difference in opinion between me and Lucifera. Well, of course, we're not going to perceive things in exactly the same way from one person to another. But many of you may think it's such a strong difference that it is diametrically opposed. And for those, I would like to illustrate what perception is all about, why it matters, why it doesn't matter. Because the way someone else perceives things, whether they choose to call these energy forces God or angels or demons or whatever, that, of course, is their choice. and it doesn't make their choice any more or less of the way that I and many of you perceive things. Let me tell you an old African fable. This comes to us from West Africa. There's a West African god called Ananasi. He is the god of knowledge, of understanding, of learning. But Ananasi is also a god of trickery. The Norse mythology equivalent of Ananasi may be Loki. Think of him that way. Oftentimes, people only learn something because you trick them. And this was the method that this West African god used. The story goes like this. One day, Ananasi was walking through a village. Now, he had a big, beautiful hat on his head. One side of the hat was red, and the other side was black. Now, as Ananasi walked through the village, either side of the village saw the hat. They both sides of the village saw the hat, and of course, they saw the hat differently. After Ananasi walked through the village, the villagers started talking about the big, beautiful hat that Ananasi was wearing. And of course, one side said, "Wasn't that a great, beautiful black hat?" And the other side said, "It wasn't black, it was red." Now, according to the fable, the villagers came to blows over whether the hat was red or black. Now, this is to illustrate a point. And of course, it's the point I'm trying to illustrate here. People can perceive things completely differently and both be right. And in a way, both be wrong. The way someone perceives the spirit, the energy of the universe, whether you perceive these things, whether you have names for them, whether or not you give them human characteristics, it doesn't matter. If that's the way you perceive them, then that's just fine and awesome. If you just perceive these things as energy, you have a more scientific way of looking at things. That, of course, there's nothing wrong with that either. Both of them are correct, and both of them are incorrect. So, that being said, just because Lucy and I differ in our perceptions of the energies of the universe does not mean that we don't agree on our method and our mission to address people into the understanding we are so much more than we think, than we've been told. We need to get rid of these Christian constructs and start perceiving ourselves in the manner in which we truly are. And if you want to believe in demons and angels, or you just want to look at it as energy, it doesn't matter. It's not worth fighting about. Fighting about it, it's all about ego. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, I'm wrong. You're right, you're wrong. It's all perception. Starting in the book, on page 27, we have a description of chaos and how we have to perceive things here in this realm. Page 27. Duality describes humans' usual condition. Happiness exists only because of misery, pain because of comfort, good because of being evil, yang because of yin, black because of white, birth because of death, and existence because of non-existence. All phenomena must be paired, as the senses are only equipped to perceive differences. The thinking mind has the property of splitting everything it encounters into two. It is dualistic thing itself. Yet, there is a part of man which is of a singular nature, although the mind is unable to perceive it as such. Man considers himself a center of will and a center of perception. Will and perception are not separate, but only appear so in the mind. The unity which appears to the mind to exert the twin functions of will and perception is called Kia by magicians. Sometimes it's called the spirit or soul or life force instead. Kia cannot be experienced directly because it is the basis of consciousness or experience. And it has no fixed qualities which the mind can latch onto. Kia is the consciousness. It is the elusive I, which confers self-awareness, but does not seem to consist of anything itself. This is basic Buddhist principles. There is no I. Kia can sometimes be felt as ecstasy or inspiration, the aimless wanderings of thought, and the identification with experience, and that cluster of opinions about ourselves called ego. Magic is concerned with giving the Kia more freedom and flexibility, and with providing means by which it can manifest its occult power. Kia is capable of occult power because it is a fragment of the great life force of the universe. Consider the world of apparent dualisms we inhabit. The mind views a picture of the world in which everything is double. A thing is said to exist and exert certain properties, being and doing. This calls for the concepts of cause and effect or causality. Every phenomenon is seen to be caused by some previous thing. However, this description cannot explain how everything exists in the first place, or even how one thing finally causes another. Obviously, things have originated and do continue to make each other happen. The thing responsible for the origin and continued action of events is called chaos by magicians. It could as well be called God or Tao, but the same chaos is virtually meaningless. And the name chaos is virtually meaningless and free from anthropomorphic ideas of religion. Chaos is also the force which adds increasingly complexity into the universe by spawning structures which were not inherent in its component parts. It is the force which has caused life to evolve itself out of dust, and is currently most concentratingly manifest in the human life force, or Kia, where it is the source of consciousness. Kia is but a small fragment of the great life force of the universe, which contains the twin impulses to immerse itself in duality and to escape from duality. It will continuously reincarnate until the first impulse is exhausted. The second impulse is the root of the mystic quest, the union of the liberated spirit with the great spirit. To the extent that Kia can become one with chaos, it can extend its will and perception into the universe to accomplish magic. We live in a dualistic nature. This, unfortunately, is how we have to perceive things. You might look at Kia as the subconscious. And we live here in this conscious existence, and therefore we cannot perceive things outside of it. If you choose, you can call that the spirit world, angels, demons, God, heaven, hell. We put these constructs on things and give them names, of course, so that we can perceive and understand something that is so well beyond our perception and understanding in this conscious awareness. Now, I'm going to read about liberation. We discuss a lot, Lucy and I, about liberating ourselves. Well, sometimes we have to liberate ourselves from ourselves. Page 45. In creating life out of the primal slime, chaos has always sought to increase its possibilities of expression and to diversify its manifestations. During the evolution of life, there has been many stagnant periods and some reversals, but overall, the inherent superiority of the most flexible, adaptable, inclusive, and complex creatures, cultures, men, and ideas always win out. To seek these qualities is to achieve more liberation than any bizarre feat of renunciation or reorganization of political power is likely to create. It is a mistake to consider any belief more liberated than another. I am not conveying my beliefs upon you, and neither is Lucy conveying her beliefs upon you. It's not what we're here for. We are here as facilitators. We don't want to teach as much as we want to try to facilitate you into your own understanding of your Kia, as it's described in here, your spirit, your soul, your Christ consciousness, your Buddha nature, your Godhood within. How you find that is important. Not some dogma that we attach to you that you have to believe. We're here to be facilitators for that. It is a mistake to consider any belief more liberated than another. It is the possibility of change which is important. Every new form of liberation is destined to eventually become another form of enslavement for most of its adherents. There is no freedom from duality on this plane of existence, but one may at least aspire the choice of duality. Now, in this book, it discussed Gnosticism and how it is used in different cultures to get people to come to this, to facilitate people to come to this understanding. Gnosis meaning knowledge. And I will be discussing that later. Liberating behavior is that which increases one's possibilities for future action. Limiting behavior is that which tends to narrow one's options. The secret of freedom is not to be drawn into situations where one's number of alternatives becomes limited or even unitary. This is an abominably difficult path to tread, which is very similar, again, with Buddhism, trying to go the middle way, the middle path. It means stepping outside of one's own culture, society, relationships, family, personality, beliefs, prejudices, opinions, and ideas. It is just these comforting chains which seems to give definition, meaning, character, and a sense of belonging to most people. Yet, in casting off one set of chains, one cannot avoid adopting another set, unless one wishes to live in a very reduced and impoverished style, itself a limitation. The solution is to become omnivores, someone who can think, believe, or do any of a half a dozen different things, is more free and liberated than someone confined to only one activity. Even the term New Age can be confining and chains, because you tend to gravitate towards people who believe things the way you do. This can be a chain. This is the problem, the root of the problem with the Abrahamic religions. They believe that they have it all figured out, especially Christians. This is the problem with Christendom. You don't have it all figured out. You don't know what comes after this life. You think you do, but you don't. How could you? How could any of us? Nonsense. Nonsense. It's good, I suppose, in your own way, in your own way of coping with the world, that you hold on to this Jesus and think, I'm going to heaven, because it makes you feel safe. It's nothing but a chain, and it is a manifestation of megalomania and your own personal ego. And yet, so many of you have the nerve to say somehow that we are puffed up full of pride. Those of us who have the audacity to second guess your belief system. Ego is the enemy. Now, on page 66, we have another description of the ego. The idea of mind or ego is as a fixed attribute or possession of self is illusionary. All that can be said of Kia is that the amount of meaning one experiences is proportional to Kia's manifestation in one circumstance. Next time, I'm going to be discussing the Psychonaut, and I'm going to be reading a lot more out of the book. This idea of chaos as let's just say pseudo-religion, absolutely appeals to me. No longer am I in subservience to a God, whether that God be a Christian God or another, with the idea of chaos as being the root of the force within the universe and the ability to utilize that force is extremely freeing of those bonds for me. And a lot of you have a serious problem with religion because it keeps you in bondage. This is the most freeing philosophy, spiritual, for the lack of a better word, theology that I've ever come across. And after years of being a Zen Buddhist, it seems to me that this is a little step forward. Does it matter if I'm going forward? What does that mean? Evolving spiritually. It's what we all need to do. We stay in a stasis, believing we got it all figured out, whether that's the arrogance of Christianity or the arrogance of being an atheist, patting yourself on the back and saying, you got it all figured out. Ego. Chaos is, of course, something that's always shifting. We need to learn to shift with it, because chaos is the essential ingredient of the universe. It is what we are all made out of. So stay tuned. In a few days, I will be continuing my discussion of this book, which is actually 2 books. So I'll be discussing the second book, The Psychonaut. I hope many of you enjoyed it. I hope you choose to hit that like button, and I hope that you choose to communicate with us. Because the only way that we can truly help those out there and facilitate is for you to communicate with us. So, thanks to all those for listening. I know it must have been long. And if you made it this far, I guarantee you, you'll like the next one. More of the same, yet more of the difference. Thank you very much, and we'll be seeing you again soon. And communicate with us. We're here, Lucy and I, to help you, to facilitate you in whatever it is that you think your spiritual evolution is. Thanks.